200 to 500 fishermen, or 200 to 500 fishermen. And we have usually, so we deploy field teams of 2 using laptops. And they basically spend 3 months doing that. And then we get the data in. And as the data is coming in, we're sending it back out to them to kind of verify if it's accurate. Did we capture it right? And then we combine the data into these aggregate maps like I showed, take those back to the community, get them to verify is it accurate, and then talk about how it's going to be used publicly, like who's going to see it, what does it look like, and kind of get their sign off on that, and then it's into the process. And then as it's in the process, then we also use that same data to do economic impact and assessments.
Thanks. Yeah, Alex Chartrand, representative of the Central Coast First Nations Governance Committee, associated with the PNCIMA. A couple of, well, at least 3 questions anyway, Charles, in regards to your planning on California. My question, I guess, is really in terms of the time. I think it looked like to me that you were taking this like a snapshot in one time zone. What other information or data or information that you got previous to those recent data subsets or whatever you called them there? What did you have to provide into this this planning tool that you have here? And that's my first question. If you can answer that one, that'd be great.
Okay. I think so. I think I understand what you're saying is that those maps of the ground, fishing grounds, were just a snapshot. So we didn't have anything prior. There's no data prior to that. There's no like historical snapshot. There's just the data doesn't exist. So this is what we started with, and that kind of feeds into the timeline of the process. So the process, basically, that short time period that we have to go out, build trust, collect data, deliver to the process, is about a 9-month window. And so when we're capturing the information, we're asking, we could go and we could ask, okay, what was important to you last year? What was important to you 10 years ago? What about before this fisheries management closure? What about during an El Nino year? And you could start to ask those questions, and capture it spatially, but then the interviews would be 5 hours long, and you'd have so much data that you probably wouldn't be able to get it all synthesized and into the process in a time. So what we do is we ask, over your cumulative fishing experience, and then we ask questions around how experienced they are to basically draw their fishing ground. So it's a snapshot of their entire fishing experience. And there's obvious limitations to that, but it's a little bit forced by the process itself.
Mm-hmm. So my second question then is that in regards to, are you looking to incorporate some history of fishing species on those zones, or where those fishing species work well or grow better and, within certain areas? Are those incorporated within this plan, this planning process that you have here? Because it just seems like there's some limitations here that I can see that I can't really feel that would be good for, say, the Central Coast in terms of ensuring and bringing back the low level of stocks right across the board. Mm-hmm. So does this tool help us to identify that, to ensure that we can work towards bringing historical stocks back right across the board?
So I guess how I would answer that question is, in order for this tool, Marxan with zones, to be able to do that, you're going to have to, you're going to need the data that basically characterize the historical importance, or that baseline, whatever that baseline is. And so that would be the first start, is to get that information so that you have that baseline of what was historically important, to be able to identify zones that you would think would potentially bring back those resources or protect those resources. But the first, and so there's methods out there to go and capture this information. So it's a matter of how you design that methodology to go and get those different snapshots. And I don't have much familiarity with historical snapshots and how to capture that information, other than we do some work around looking at fishery management decisions, spatial fishery management decisions, and going back and capturing information. Like, so on the West Coast, things like the rockfish conservation area went into place around 2000, and it's completely shifted where fishermen have shifted. And so we have a project right now of going back and interviewing fishermen to see what that shift looked like, or where it was before. Where were they fishing before the RCA, and then how the fishery is split. Basically, there's fishermen that go deeper now and fish the Dover Sole, Thorny Head sablefish complex, and then there's fishermen that go inside and are beach draggers now. And it's not only changed where they target, but it's changed like the type of trawl gear that they use and things like that.
Okay, thank you, Charles.
Yeah.
Charles, my question is more of a follow-up to the response you gave about the methods that you use to collect the fisheries data and information. And I was just purely curious, when you're doing that over, I think you said it was a 3-month or 5-month period, how many people do you have working with you to actually collect this information? Because it sounds like you've been able to collect a large amount of information, but it's very time-consuming,
yeah.
A 5-hour interview. And I'm just curious, is there 2 people? Is it 10 people that are doing this at a given time?
Sure. I'm trying to give a good example, or just say on average. So let's say Southern California, Santa Barbara to San Diego, you have 8 major ports. You have on the order of anywhere from 10 to 20 different fisheries that you're trying to map information for. We had 9 field staff, that worked 3 months straight, and they would do anywhere between 2 and 5 interviews a day, and so 2 field staff at a time. The interviews actually take anywhere between 45 minutes, an hour and a half. With fishermen, they can talk for days, so you kind of have to make sure that you steer the conversation back to where it needs to go. So that's the staff in the field, and then it's staff back at the office. You have someone kind of coordinating that effort back at the office, as well as you have a GIS analyst and maybe 1 or 2 technicians working pretty much full time to, as data is coming in, you're quality checking it for accuracy, and then they're running the analysis to produce the maps, and then you have someone that coordinator then goes back into the field and works with the communities to verify that information.
Okay, great. So it's about 12. It's about a staff of 12 people full time for 3 months at least. Okay.
About 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
This goes back to Alex's comment. I think so. Getting at the dynamic aspects of this system, and one of the things that was also occurring to me is the flip side of once you close some areas, what might that do for the economic situation in a positive sense if you are restoring some fisheries by protecting sources and that sort of thing? So I wonder if yourself or anyone in this audience might have an update for some of us about eco-space with eco-sim and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Because I'm thinking about, even if it's crude modeling, it might still serve the purpose of at least entertaining different kinds of scenarios, and especially in terms of what are we trying to get to by this protection? What does a healthy ecosystem look like? What is it comprised of, and what relative amounts, so to speak, of different species might be part of that? And that Back to the Future project was kind of looking at that. So any updates you have would be great.
Okay. So I'll speak to the things that I can. So you kind of led off your statement with dynamics, and dynamic systems are tough to address, right? And so how, at least in California, they've attempted to address this is there's some researchers down in Santa Barbara, Chris Costello and Will Rasmussen, who have developed and have applied